Hello students, I am again here Dr. Seema Jaiswal to start your new chapter of BHN 202. The, as we have already completed our last unit, now we are going to start our new unit and the chapter of new unit, that is foodborne illness, intoxication, poisoning and infection. As we all know, the environmental in the in environmental diseases, in the chapter environmental diseases, we have already discussed about the environmental diseases. Environmental diseases means in the infection, basically airborne infection, waterborne infection, soil-borne, sewage-borne infection, and similarly our food foodborne infection. Here in the this chapter, we are focused on the food poisoning, basically food intoxication caused by microorganism in entrance of microorganism in the body. After completion of their cycle, they produces some infection. Vector of infection is microorganism, as we already know about. So, bacteria, these are the especially the pathogenic bacteria and virus and some molds are responsible to produces the infection. The infection has been divided in classified into two parts according to sources and according to their nature. According to sources, you have to divide it the airborne infection, waterborne infection, droplet infection, highly communicable infection. Nature, according to nature, you have to divide it the acute and chronic infection, and or as you according to their duration, you have to classify communicable. Sometimes the infection are very highly communicable and sometimes not very communicable. So if communicable means easily transmitted from one to each other, and these are basically these type of diseases are airborne especially. And we can see in the COVID era that droplet infection is very highly communicable and transmitted in the community, and they become an epidemic structure. And apart from epidemic, and they across the world, they develop a pandemic situation like corona. You already seen in present scenario that COVID produces a pandemic situation on globally affected the particular people. So we are going. These are the infection. So infection is a particular pathogenic condition which are going on, which completed in the three stages, as we already discussed in our environmental disease. So first stage is incubation period. As you all know about incubation period, some microbes are required incubation period 1 day, 2 days. Some microbes require some hours. So these are the incubation period when the entrance of microorganisms has been done, and after the invasion of uh, microorganism through different mode, like contaminated water, contaminated food, contaminated uh, any kind of air. From air we inhale the contaminated air. So these are the mode, and from where microbes are entered in our body. Sometimes blood transmission produces infection, and sometimes the uh, use of utensils and use of personal material of one person to another person. These are the mode of infection transmission. So the infection are moving whenever they enter microbe in our body. It takes some time for incubate means they microbes are searching a particular area where they are developed easily, and our body is provide them a proper situation, optimum nutrient in the form of glucose and other products which are required for their growth and development. They obtain as a host and and parasite, and they reaches their growth and development according to multiplication and rapidly multiply, and increases their strength. So this is the period of incubation. First period of infection is period of incubation. This is the period when the body work out for the against microorganism, work out to delay to destroy the invaded microorganism entered in our body. This is the situation of incubation period. But when the power of my infectious agent is high, then they grown up easily and multiply again and again, and retain in our bloodstream and produces the second period, that is period of symptom. After the proper growth and development, they produces hazard in our body and destruct our different cells and tissues, and denatured our platelets and etc. These type of activities takes place by the microorganisms which are which are increases their strength, and this is called the period of symptom. After the period of symptom, the period of convalescence started, where the microorganisms have completed their cycle in our body and releases from our seizing, coughing, cooking, and different mode uh, from the body of patient. So after convolution period, the microbial strength of microbial become less in our body, and the body become either uh, very weak or fatal. Sometimes fatal when the treatment are not taken by the patient. Sorry. So here we are talking about the food poisoning. In differences, these differences of infection, when you have to clear a concept of infection. Now we are going to talk the intoxication and poisoning. As we all know, before the dealing with the intoxication or poisoning, we have to remind the characteristics of microorganisms, as we already discussed when the chapter of characteristics of microorganism had going on, had gone had discussed that nature of microorganism. They produces some bacteria produces their toxin also, and molds are releases their toxin also. So molds and bacterial toxin are very harmful and produces intoxication and poisoning, and sometimes itself bacteria also or itself mold produces also one kind of different kind of infection. So we are going to discuss here the foodborne illness, intoxication, poisoning, and infection. So what is bacteria? We had already know that microbes or bacteria, yeast, molds are found everywhere. We cannot the them from very nano in size and easily spread out in our air, in our environment, and moving on from one to another surfaces. So microorganism, but we had decided the safe amount of microbes when the food in when we talking about the food for flora of animal. So when they present in particular safe amount, then they can't be, they cannot uh, produces a diseases, but they when they increases their strength and increases their number and count, then they produces spoilage in food. And when they were pathogenic in nature, then after ingestion they produces different type of intoxication and infection. So what is here we are going to discuss the food bacteria, yeast and mold count. But in the food bacteria, yeast and mold are easily stay in food because food works as a substrate for microorganisms. Food provide all the needs, all the optimum adequate environment for growth and development of microorganisms when they available. When they available means when the food has a strong asepsis, then it cannot the entrance of microorganism become delayed. But when they are entered in the food, then they easily cross their leg phase, as we are already discussed in a growth phase of micro bacteria and micro other microbes. Then after entrance in food, they are moving to taking growth and development. And after growth and development, they multiply chemical changes in the food. And after sometimes the demand of oxygen and become decreases when they highly increased in their strength. Then the death phase of microbes are started. So the growth phase, positive acceleratory phase, and optimum growth and development phase, then negative accelerative phase, then uh, death phase are we had already discussed. So this is the situation of microbes which are present in food and produces different type of food defects and food deficient. So my bacteria, yeast, and mold are microorganisms associated with the food. The individual microorganism cannot be seen without a of microscope. We can't see them because they are very nano in size. So how much size are of 1 micron is equal to 1/1000 of millimeter. Means 1 part of 1000 millimeter is uh, called a micron. So more than 1000 microorganism were in a cluster. When microbes are माइक्रो आर हमेशा ये चीज होती है माइक्रोब के नेचर के साथ में कि वो ग्रुप में they keep stay in the form of group, and this group is called cluster. And they increase microorganism microbial count, then they form a cluster. And after they form cluster, they easily visible in the form of colony, as we already discussed in our practical enumeration of microorganism, yeah, or cultivation of microorganism. And in enumeration we are used particular nutrient culture media to develop the particular microorganism. And when they form period, then we can easily see the colony counter, and we can easily see our by our naked eye without any aid. We have naked seen them naked eye. The colony of microbes, even bacterial colony, are easy cross their limits from the 1000, they are formed colony and they are easily visible. So these are the microbial activity, and similarly the activity is important in terms of intoxication, which are produces by the microbes. Here we are categorized the all bacteria microbes in three forms: the beneficial microorganism, which we had already discussed in our is all, also present in our body and in the gut flora, and they perform very important function, even forming the immunity boosting function is also performing by these gut bacteria. Similarly, various aspect and various area where the microorganisms are work for our beneficial for effects, and produces different type of fermented food in food industry, and with different type of uh, in food industry we have to categorize in different parts, in dairy industry, in pickle industry, in alcohol industry, in acid industry, vinegar industry, in preservative industry, different type of area. And in the non-food area, we are already discussed the beneficial bacteria and beneficial yeast and molds are also required for the agriculture. In the food, we are always familiar with the yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. It is called baker's yeast. The different species of Saccharomyces yeast are also used in the alcohol formation and other processing. So these are the beneficial microorganisms. Similarly, other category of microorganisms is is producing microorganisms. Producing microorganisms are generally not harmful in our human body, but they are changed. And they are able to change the structure and chemical and biochemical composition of the food when they are entering food and grown uses spoilage in food, and the become change and unacceptable in the consumption point of view, that is spoilage. And third category is pathogenic microorganism. Pathogenic microorganisms, especially pathogenic bacteria, are very dangerous and directly associated with the public health concern. The pathogenic bacteria, the different type of unicellular plant and animal cells like amoeba. Amoeba produces amoebiasis, amoeba type of plasmodium, and other volvax etc. produces malaria and different type of uh, other unicellular and other algae and other type of microbes. They are included in microbes category. So they are pathogenic in nature sometimes, but the living microorganisms of toxin, they the some microorganisms are releases toxin and must be consumed to cause symptom associated with a specific pathogenic microorganism. Different type of bacteria microbe produce different type of particular infection. So these pathogenic bacteria microbes are very harmful. Essence of we are going to discuss here. Microorganism can be found with virtually every bacteria, sewage, pathogenic bacteria present in sewage. Yeast are found mainly in the soil. Plant and animal food products support the growth of microorganisms. Bacteria have been detected on plant and animal. Moles are usually found in fruits and vegetable yeast and generally found on fruits. Many bacteria are part of the microbes also found. So generally we have discussed already discussed the spoilage chapter where we all discussed the yeast and mold affected spoilage. Most of the cases, yeast and mold are affected fruits and vegetable, as we've seen. The Aspergillus niger fungi mold category produces the black rots upon the surface of the onion. Similarly, we have seen that different type of molds are produces different type of rots in the fruits and vegetable, and sometimes they produces in the form of dust in their as their nature. The aspergillus flavors are developed in the peanut and produces foliage and density in the peanut and other uh, nuts. The aspergillus flavors produces and is developed, is spoiled and unacceptable in consumption point of view. But and sometimes they are produces um, a prolonged food intoxication also, like fungi aspergillus flavors which is present which are generally present in uh, peanut. They produces a prolonged intoxication. Gradually they damage our liver when they regularly consume the affected uh, peanut diet. In the form of liver cirrhosis. So it is very dangerous. So yeah, here microorganisms are everywhere. We cannot deny. The contamination is a situation where the microbes are entered in particular food. So microorganism may be transferred from soil, water. These are the mode from where the microbes are transmitted from one part to another part, one surface to another surface, one body to another body. These are the contamination sources. So microorganism may be transferred from soil and water, plant and animal. The raw food stuff contain microorganisms which may be transferred and contaminate the processed food by bad handling. When they, it can easily by bad handling practices, they can easily transmit it from one part to another part. Then we are talking about, so these are the condition from the which the food is passes in our food. Food are microbes are entered in our food. Microbial growth and development after contamination or entrance in the particular food. Food handlers with poor hygiene and practices may transfer microorganisms to the food if the favorable and suitable condition they found. When we applied the preservation technique, when we apply techniques, thermal techniques, cold storage technique, cooling technique, freezing technique, then the microbes stop their growth. But when they found optimum situation for their growth and development, then they may grow to create food sporage decay, or they are sporage producing, or they when they are sporage producing but they are pathogenic in nature, then may they produces the food intoxication and food borne illness as public health concern. Specific bacteria species, their pathogenic microorganisms are main cause of foodborne illness in human being. If, and from food contamination, the pathogenic microbes usually do not look bad problem in the food, but they are easily destroy our health. So microorganism in food product we are going to here discuss. We are we had discussed that how can microbes are reaching in food to produces different type of foodborne illness. So foodborne diseases. When we talking about the foodborne illness can be defined as the illness due to ingestion of ingestion of contaminated, spoiled or poisonous food, contaminated by microbes or toxicants, which may occur at any stage during processing, the processing from production to consumption. When they are growing, when they are cultivating, when they are transport in market, when they are home transport home to, from the market, and when they are in our plate. So production to consumption, these are the situation where bad handling practices can easily transmit the microbes in our food. Contamination may also occur from environment, like using chemical and pollutants and our soil and cultivation from. So different type of hazardous and toxic agent can also be passed out in our food, and they are also hazardous, but here we are talking about the microbial illness, foodborne illness. So clinical symptoms represent wide spectrum of illness from to long immunological and neurological disorder and multi-organ failure and with cancer. We had discussed the human papilloma virus are present in female genital organ, and after some time, after growth and development, they are produces uterine, very dangerous. Similarly, other virus which are present in which when we there comes in our body, then produces different type of very dangerous condition. But here, type of foodborne illness we are discussing here. Type of foodborne illness, the type of foodborne diseases. So you find the basically the differences between infection and intoxication, that when the food microbes are present in particular when the microbes produces infection, they form the particular three stages, and incubation period are very longer when sometime infection situation. And infection is not it comes from only food, it comes from different type of mode, as we already discussed in environmental diseases. And foodborne illness and foodborne intoxication, the condition of food intoxication, that food we will discuss the condition when the food intoxication occurs, when they find out the basic differences from food intoxication and food infection. So the preparedness of foodborne illness is usually caused by harmful bacteria, virus, and parasite, including chemical. Chemical are also uh, chemicals are also responsible for food poisoning. So, but we are talking about food microbes, with those microbes which are produces food poisoning and food infection and illness. So based on cause, it can be classified into two categories. If a foodborne infection producing agent, and second, foodborne intoxication, the toxin producing agent develop the foodborne intoxication. Diseases which results of pathogenic microorganism are two types: infection, and second, in food intoxication and poisoning. What is food intoxication and poisoning? Foodborne. First of all, we have discussed about foodborne infection. Foodborne infection is caused by ingestion of food, infected food, ingestion of contaminated food containing the live bacteria which grow and establish themselves in our human intestinal tract, human mucosa, and when first the enter of microorganism by the ingestion of contaminated infected food, and then they microbes are attached with our mucosal and submucosal part of the intestinal tract, and here they takes their nutrient and produces their shape and size increases, and then after multiplication, after proper growth, they started the multiplication and develop their strength for according to disease producing. When they reach their strength, and then they produces diseases. So some foodborne infections, uh, and after development and growth and they take growth and development after increasing their count, they reaches in our bloodstream and produces different type of health hazardous tissue damage, etc. So foodborne infection is that foodborne infection, illness resulting from a as the foodborne infection. Diseases causing microorganisms are ingested through food and infection gastrointestinal tract by releasing toxins, damaging the intestinal epithelium and causing gastroenteritis. Generally, this is the statement of Fraser, who is the author of Food Microbiology. Fraser and their co-authors are 1988. They are stated that generally, foodborne infection is gastroenteritis, where the gastrointestinal tract become inflamed and produces a different discomfort like diarrhea, like vomiting, nausea, and like different type of flatulence and blotting of abdominal, and that type develop in our body. So microorganism, bacteria, virus, and parasite incubation period. Their incubation period is hours and days. Hours to days. After ingestion of food, 4 to 6 hours, sometimes 12 hours. They are that rapidly time they are reaches their strength to produce intoxication and infection. So symptom, which kind of symptoms appears? The diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, abdominal cramps, fever. Fever also, it is a compensatory mechanism of the infection. Whenever the infectious agent enter in our body, then the hypothalamus part of the brain is activated and produces parathormones and different type of agent to accelerate the body temperature. That is called fever. So fever is a compensatory mechanism, but the body wants to destroy the microbes by the high temperature. There is temperature increasing is a sign of infection also. There are some time of infection existed when we accelerate our when we find the accelerate our body temperature from 98.4 degree Fahrenheit, more than 98.4 degree Fahrenheit. So these are the symptoms which are produced after the ingestion of those contaminated food within 4 to 6 hours. Then transmission, it can spread by from the person to person through fecal and oral route. That is combinedly called feco-oral route. And the fishes pass out in the sewage, and when the air pass out from the sewage and reaches in our food, then after ingestion of those kind of food, it produces food intoxication. And similarly, the oral route, when we are talking about, then the droplet infection can be possible by the droplets releases and leaches in our surface of our food. When when they consume by another person, then it transmitted easily. So cross contamination of food is also a cause of transmission. Factors related to contamination. Now we are going to discuss the factors related contamination. Inadequate cooking, when we are completely when we incompletely cook food and consume it, then it produces. Poor personal hygiene, it is a common cause. Bad handling, contacts, mixing of raw and cooked food, etc. So before eating the food, it can be heat, and heating is destroy the microbes. Here the factors which are responsible for development and growth of microorganism in food. The foodborne in when we are talking about the foodborne infection, it produces by bacteria. Bacteria are single-celled microscopic organism, are self-sufficient to able to grow autotrophs. They are autotrophs in nature only in a so, no, they are they self-sufficient to able to grow not only in the suitable environment but also need available nutrient, and all the available nutrient and surrounding are they found in our body also and in food. So food are main source of foodborne infection. Here, the bacterial contaminate food at any time during harvesting, processing, storage, and shipping, as well as during preparation of food, restaurant, or and when we use the dirty water and kitchenness of food, dirty water to cleaning of vegetable and fruit. The food prepared do not wash and their hands not washed. And kitchen utensils are properly unclean, and cutting board and different type of utensils you and surface are unhygiene in condition. Then and raw food such as meat, poultry, fish, shellfish, eggs, unpasteurized milk and dairy products, canned food are also most favorable foodstuff for pathogenic bacterial growth and development. These foods are very prone to growth and development of microorganisms because works as a very highly substrate for microbial growth. So, some of the most common foodborne illness caused by bacteria we are going to discuss here. Now, food intoxication. Foodborne intoxication. What is food for intoxication? It is caused by ingesting food containing toxins. What toxins? Microbial toxins. Food intoxication is caused by ingesting food containing microbial toxin or toxin formed by bacteria, which resulted from bacterial growth in the food items and live microorganism does not have to be consumed. When we eat only toxin of microbe which are grown up in our food, then this toxin can be produces intoxication. Mm, it is not compulsory to particular microbial growth in our body. Only their toxin are even one more below than 1 ml count. We know below than 1 mm count of toxin are able to produce intoxication in our body when they are ingested from different food. So, contaminated food. So, what is intoxication? When the foodborne illness may occur, what kind of condition should be necessary to produce to develop in our to develop the food intoxication in our body? There are some conditions we will be discussing here. In the case of food poisoning, so the microorganism or its toxin must be present in food. This is the condition. The food must be suitable for the microorganism because food are when the food is heated, then microbe are destroyed. So how can they produce their toxin? When they develop, they grow and in the particular food, then after that they produces their toxin, and their toxin produces intoxication in our body. So second condition is also required, and the temperature and must be suitable for the microorganism to grow. So temperature already discussed. When the heat applied, then it cannot be developed, and when the freezing applied, then it cannot be developed. So proper temperature is required for the growth and development. So the stale food is very prone for the food poisoning. enough time must be given for the microorganism. After ingestion, it the f- first when the enter of microbes in particular food and food is not ingested quickly. It it keeps in for some time, then it produces surrounding for growth and development of microbes. And microbes, and after growth they produces their toxin. The food must be eaten. It is the condition that intoxication lead when the food must be when the food is ingested. Without ingested food, intoxication is not possible. uh, with holding in hand, it is not possible. Ingestion is the condition. General symptom of foodborne illness. So, food toxins, the bacterial toxins are very dangerous. The bacterial toxin are neurotoxin, enterotoxin. These toxins are produced by the bacteria, and by the fungi, aflatoxin, mycotoxin. The fungi toxins are not very much harmful, but the bacterial toxin are very harmful for the body, and even fatal, means death leading intoxication and poisoning produces by bacterial toxins especially. So symptoms of foodborne, we are discussing a general symptom of foodborne illness. What kind of general symptom occurs in foodborne illness? The most common symptom associated with foodborne illness is diarrhea. Diarrhea. Each pathogenic microorganism has its set of characteristic symptoms. The severity of the foodborne illness it depends on the pathogenic nature of pathogenic bacteria, yeah, or microorganism or toxin ingested by our body, ingested by the human being. The amount of consumed, कितना खाया आपने, इस पर भी डिपेंड करता है कि वो टॉक्सिक एजेंट एलिमेंट आपने बहुत ज़्यादा खा लिया तो वो कंटामिनेटेड फूड, और बहुत कम खाया तो भी इसकी सीवियरिटी डिपेंड करती है कि इन बातों पर कि पहले फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द सीवियरिटी ऑफ फूड बॉर्न इलनेस डिपेंड्स ऑन द नेचर एंड टाइप ऑफ माइक्रो पैथोजेनिक माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म। देन टॉक्सिन, देयर टॉक्सिन कौन सा टॉक्सिन वो रिलीज करता है उसके नेचर पर, फिर इसकी सीवियरिटी डिपेंड करती है। And then in their ingestion and the amount of food consumed, then the health status of the individual. When the health status of the individual is very strong and they have a very strong resistance power, and the intestinal mucosa and submucosa are very strong, then the severity of foodborne illness become um, very lower category, and not in highly and severe and acute form. But the people who are consume this contaminated food have a poor resistance, mechanical and chemical barrier against the microorganism. Then uh, mm, they suffered from very severe condition. So in toxin from microbes while they multiply in the food or after entering the intestine, it produces these factors are responsible for the severity of the foodborne illness. For individuals who have immunocompromised, immunocompromised means the people who are going to low resistance and low immunity uh, power in that health condition. Generally, aging people, children, and pregnant women and are very prone for the foodborne illness. And after foodborne illness develop in their body, it may be life threatening because of their immunocompromised person. So here the note is, apart from microorganisms cause foodborne intoxication, various type of chemicals, various type of toxic elements are also responsible for the food. In case of food also, apart from microorganism, food has some food has some toxic elements like boa present in the Lathyrus sativus. Lathyrus sativus is generally called khesari dal. Khesari dal has a beta oxyl L type of amino acid which is very toxic in nature and directly attack in our neurological when the regular consumption is takes place, then it attacks the neurological system and functioning, and they gradually damage the neurological control of the lower limbs, lower, and the person become uh, handicapped, the- and cannot be able to uh, walk. So letharism develop after prolonged eating of the Lathyrus sativus. This is the natural toxin present in the Lathyrus sativus. So apart from microorganisms, this type of toxication also leads and prolonged toxication. When you were talking about the duration of the food intoxication, there are two type of food intoxication generally seen. First, acute food poisoning and prolonged affecting food poisoning. Prolonged affecting food poisoning produces gradually eating after eating sometimes gradually damage the tissues, and some that after that we are uh, hearing that the particular person is affected from liver cirrhosis because the regular eating of the particular toxin releases on aflatoxin in their peanut consumption, peanut butter, etc. Regular consumption of peanut butter, which are affected from aflatoxin. In this type of cases, we can be seen. It's a type of prolonged food intoxication. Similarly, ergot. Uh, Ergotism is also caused by a mold present in particular millet in South Africa, and generally all the cereal and millets are affected from the this mold, is caused ergotism in our body. The particular mold is responsible for that, and it is also produces a prolonged effect in our body. So there are two type of infection which are producing quickly and acute form of food intoxication, and secondly prolonged affected intoxication. We have to categorize in two parts. So, and generally bacterial intoxication is very quickly and suddenly and acute in nature, but in the when the person is affected from the fungal toxin, it produces prolonged effects in prolonged intoxication effects in our body. Fungal prolonged and regular consumption of fungal and infected food consumption is produces prolonged effects. But the bacterial intoxication produces acute and very highly severe in nature. We are talking about our bacterial intoxication. There are bacterial intoxication or those intoxication condition which are caused by bacteria. So, and bacteria and bacterial toxins. So first we are going to discuss thing here the staphylococcal poisoning. What is staphylococcal poisoning? As the name of the particular cause is poisoning is here, staphylococcal means the poisoning or intoxication caused by staphylococci. Staphylococci bacteria. Which kind of species are responsible for the staphylococcal poisoning is Staphylococcus aureus. The species is Aurus. Staphylococcus aureus is responsible to producing enterotoxin. Enterotoxin is very dangerous toxin directly associated with gastroenteritis. It produces gastroenteritis. So, causative factor of staphylococcal poisoning is enterotoxin produced by Staphylococcal aureus, which is generally developed and gastroenteritis. What is gastroenteritis? Gastroenteritis is a uh, disease in which is a food poisoning or in food intoxication in which the food Inflammation of gastro means stomach, enteritis means intestine. Means stomach and intestine both are affected from inflammation, and thereby they cannot perform properly their function, and then the diarrhea type of nausea type of vomiting type of symptom becomes started. So what kind of symptom appear by the gastroenteritis caused by enterotoxin releases from the staphylococcus aureus? Once the food are affected from staphylococcus aureus and keeps a time to develop in the food, then it produces continuously their enterotoxin, and enterotoxin is very dangerous for and produces gastroenteritis. Which kind of symptoms are depends on how much toxins you had ingested. The symptoms is depends on how much toxin in you are ingested. Within 1 to 4 hours of the consumption of contaminated food, contaminated from Staphylococcus aureus, you have consumed, then after 1 to 6 hours, if the symptom become appears. Earlier, the severe symptom means the 1 to 6 hours is the incubation period of uh, Staphylococcus aureus, which are which is enough to produce their enterotoxin. And enterotoxin, when you eat the enterotoxin, then after some time, not 1 to 6 hours, after some time the symptoms are appear with symptom nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, dehydration. Because of diarrhea, dehydration leads, and bloating, flatulence, this type of abdominal cramps, sometimes fever. These type of symptoms are appear in the in this infection. See, the common food implication, which type of food are involved for the producing this, that KOA. Milk and milk products, dairy products are very responsible. Non-veg product, poultry food are responsible. Preventive measures, when we apply the हाई टेम्परेचर ट्रीटमेंट बिफोर ईटिंग, गर्म कर लो फूड को तो नहीं होगा, इतना आसान भी नहीं फूड इंटॉक्सिकेशन लीड करना. So proper hygiene and preparation and storage of food, and with the good handling practices, hygiene practices is must for avoiding the Staphylococcus aureus food intoxication developed by the enterotoxin. Now the today's class is over. Now we will discuss the botulism food poisoning intoxication in our next class. Thank you so much. Goodbye.